All right, everybody, thanks for joining in again. This episode, we're talking about, well, sort of a relatively new movie. The official date that I saw was 2019, so I'm going to chalk that up as a new movie for us.
Huge new movie, absolutely.
And this is one of those movies that we were picking the episodes for our next recording session, and I was like, shit. And I popped open Prime, and I picked the first movie that popped up, so here we are. We're talking about 2019's The Boat.
All right. Interesting little movie you chose. Yeah, I just finished it actually this morning, and it was a little different than what I was expecting. I was thinking more your typical horror on a boat type of thing, but it was a little different than that.
Yeah, and I think the little like thumbnail they use for, or whatever, the poster art or whatever you want to call it, on like Amazon, yeah, it kind of gives that little misconception that it's going to be something a little different than what it is. And I think we should probably go ahead and say this, because I don't know of the people that are listening to this, unless you just happen to stumble across The Boat. If you haven't seen The Boat and you want a spoiler-free episode, I would go ahead and say hit the pause button, go watch it, and then come back and listen to it, because I could almost guarantee you this is going to be spoilers to the gill in this episode.
Yeah, I think you just have to go in that way with this one.
But to kind of follow up with what you said with that, because I watched this again. You know, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and you know, everybody's kind of in lockdown, and there's not really a lot of stuff to do outside of the house unless you're just going to go hang out in the yard. But so I watched this, and my wife was in the room with me as well, and she kind of got sucked into it early on. But to kind of mimic exactly what you were saying, is my wife kind of wrecked it for herself, because she anticipates when she is watching a scary movie or something that is advertised as a scary movie, that it's going to be filled with jump scares. So she ends up sitting on the edge of her seat rather than like kind of relaxing and just watching the movie. And I even tried to explain to her, typically when there's going to be a jump scare, they kind of give you a little hint that there's going to be a jump scare. And I'm not really getting the jump scare vibe off of this movie. But she was just like sitting on the edge of her seat throughout the whole movie, and then you get through the entire thing, and yeah, there's not a jump scare in this movie. There's really not any scares in this movie, but it's one of those movies. The only other movie I can think of that was like this is the movie The Others, and I think you had said a while ago that was one of those movies you missed out on, the Nicole Kidman movie from the 90s.
Never saw it. I saw it maybe like a couple of scenes, but I know the story.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies like you kind of have to go in not knowing what's going on, and it is very suspenseful. And there are a couple of things where you're like, oh, this is going to be, we're going to see a body, or we're going to see a ghost, or something's going to happen. And then it just kind of moves on to the next scene. But it didn't do it in a way that you kind of got amped up and then got let down. It just kind of like, it was one of those ones where, at least for me anyway, as I was watching this, I was like, you know what, this is, all right, let's see what happens. Okay, all right, so that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, but all right, let's see what happens here. And then you get to a certain point and you're like, oh, I got to figure it out. And then you're like, oh, wait, what? What's going on? So, yeah, But yeah, it's just funny. Like, it's the same thing. Like, every time I watch anything that my wife doesn't know about, you know, she just gets all like kind of like tightly wound and like, something's gonna jump out at me. I know it. So
Yeah, this one actually reminded me of Open Water. Remember that one?
yep.
You know, about the two divers who get stuck, caught at sea, and you know, there's all these sharks underneath them and all that. And it just kind of reminded me of, you know, it's just like a very simple film, obviously, like probably extremely low budget. Although they did a really good job with the cinematography. I mean, it was beautiful, like real good shots. But you know, basically one guy in the entire movie, and that's it. And you know, his, you know, plight, you know, involving this boat, and that, you know, it's like a very simple film, but I think it was pretty well effective. I would consider it more of like a thriller than I would
Right.
even a horror.
Yep, I would agree. And the other thing too, with, as you had said, there's one character in the entire story, and he's unnamed, which is fantastic. I think if you look at the credits, he's listed as the sailor. And the only reason why I know that is because we have whatever Amazon Fire TV box thing, whatever, hooked up to our TV. And this movie was one of the ones that had X-ray available on it. So if you're familiar with Amazon Prime and in X-ray, you can hit like the certain keys on your remote, and it will tell you like who's in each scene, and you can get like other information or whatever. But I had paused the movie at one point to like go to the bathroom or something, and it said the actor's name, and it just said the sailor. And then there was another point where I just like kind of arrowed down to see how much time was left, and it, you know, he's the only one in it. So again, it says his name and the sailor, and I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool.
Interesting. Okay.
So, I mean, not that it's not as cool as like, you know, Michael Myers being listed as the Shape or anything, but it's still pretty cool.
It is cool, yeah, because he doesn't really have a name or anything like that. So, yeah, it kind of keeps it sort of a mystery with it. Should we kind of do a rundown of really what this film is about, or?
Yeah, sure, we can, yeah.
So basically, and you kind of correct me if I'm wrong here, isn't it? It's basically this guy, he gets on his little motorboat, comes across this ship. You know, it's like I don't know, what would you call that type of ship? It's
It was like he was like on like a little like a really little, not even, I wouldn't even say it was a dinghy necessarily. And yeah, he stumbles upon this like a little like sailing houseboat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He decides to check it out and ends up getting locked in the room. It was the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And he's stuck there, and basically you kind of get the impression that there's somebody else on the boat who's locking him on there. And then he ends up gets out of that situation. And, you know, it's basically him trying to find, trying to get off of this boat. And the boat ends up taking him, you know, he gets off for a period of time, and then the boat, like, he's on this little raft thing, and he's trying to swim off to, you know, find help. And there's this other ship. And as that's happening, then, you know, it's like somebody's steering the boat and like decides to go crash into him. So he has to, you know, jump off that raft, and he ends up boarding that boat again, and he ends up getting stuck again in another area of the boat. And it's basically him being taken to this location where, you know, he's released basically. I don't know about you. What did you think once he got on that island or whatever that was? What did you think that was going to be?
I wasn't sure because it was weird because you weren't sure what was happening up until that point, because he had gotten locked into the bathroom, like you had said, and he had been in there for a while because there was one point where he even like kind of rigged a like hammock thing for his head to keep it above water so he could sleep. And you could tell he was like, at least you would assume he was like sort of getting dehydrated. And, you know, there was like the one scene where he's kind of like trying to exercise a little bit to stretch his legs and arms out. But like you said, he is led to believe that there's somebody else on the boat with him. And then he gets to this island and yeah, it was, or I shouldn't even say island necessarily. I mean, some sort of like dock or whatever. And you're not even really sure if there was somebody else there or if the boat was finally like, you served your purpose. Now you can get off.
Right.
Yeah, it was so, it kind of went back and forth between like, is he delusional? Is he not delusional? Is he on a ghost ship? Is he not on a ghost ship? Is somebody just fucking with him? You know, what's going on?
Right.
But that whole, that I don't think we want to get completely to the end yet, but I mean, it was just, and at the same time though, when he was on that, when he was going through those like little ruins or whatever, those rundown buildings, when he finally was able to safely get off the boat, you're kind of, at least for me anyway, I was kind of like, I hope you don't run into like some dumb teenagers like, I got you, man, don't hit me with the stick.
Well, it's funny. I thought when he got off there, you know what I was thinking? Because I was thinking, you know, obviously, okay, this must be a horror movie, right, that we're doing. I was thinking Hostel. I was thinking, he's going to go into some like torture chamber, and there's going to be some dude in a mask, like, you know, they're going to chain him to a chair, and they're going to start, ripping his teeth out or something.
I couldn't even imagine that you watch this movie for whatever, like an hour and 20 minutes or something, and it gets to this thing, and you're like, oh, shit, here we go into a different movie, damn it.
Right.
Yeah, this was one of those movies that it was kind of funny because my wife was trying to ask me about it when we were, like, when I started it. She's like, well, what is this? And I was like, oh, it's The Boat. And she's like, what's it about? I'm like, I have no idea. She's like, no, what's it about? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, you don't know anything about it? I'm like, no. Somebody had mentioned it like on something. The name stuck out to me, and I opened Prime, and it was the first thing on there, and I was like, okay, let's do this movie. And she was like, so you know nothing about it? I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. And then she was like, well, do you have any, what do you think's going on? I'm like, I'm just going to watch it. Just let me watch it. And I will say that sort of like the others, I think this is one of those movies you watch once and you're like, all right, that was all right. But it's not one of those ones that I don't think you could watch over and over again. I mean, maybe there's some people out there that get their, you know, whatever, this is their favorite movie and they can watch it time and time again. But for me personally, I don't think I'll be watching this over and over again.
Yeah, same. I agree totally with you with that. To me, it's a one-time shot movie, not one that I'm going to want to go watch again. It's sort of actually kind of very, very similar to Open Water. I know a lot of people really love that film, and to me, it was just like, yeah, okay. I saw it. I'm done. It's not like like some of the classics, like going to water movies. I guess like the original Jaws or something, where you just go, yeah, I could watch that 100,000 times every year and I'll be fine. Yeah, this is definitely a one and done type of film.
The only thing that that I was kind of like, really? With this movie is towards the beginning of the movie when he boards this ship out at sea and he kind of goes through the ship really quick, and he's like, "Hello, hello, anybody here?" And he doesn't get any answer. And then he like immediately is jumping on the radio, and he's like, "Hey, there's an abandoned ship out here in the ocean. Somebody needs to come and help me." And at first I was kind of like, what if they're diving or something, dude? Aren't you gonna hang out for a little bit? But
right.
But my wife pointed out to me that, oh, they were too deep for diving. And then I pointed out to her, I'm like, well, he basically got to that ship on a canoe, so how deep could they have been?
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, this was one of those movies that, like I said, I knew nothing about it going into it. If you've made it this far and you think you're going to check it out, well, I mean, we kind of wrecked it a little bit, but I don't think we
didn't fully give away the ending.
Yeah, I think we did an all right job with not spoiling it.
I think we did.
But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that I give The Boat, I'm going to say I give it an okay size thumbs up. Again, it's not going to be one that I'll be checking out again. But in these times, if you're looking for something to kill a few hours, not even a few hours, I think it's only like an hour and 20 minutes or something. So, throw it on and sit back and enjoy, because if you had know nothing about it, which if you listen to this whole thing, you know a little bit about it, but it was actually enjoyable.
It was entertaining. I will definitely say that. It's not something that it's not going to be my favorite movie, like we talked about already, but yeah, I enjoyed it. So I would definitely go ahead with you and just give it a thumbs up with this one. It's a one and done type film, but yeah, you should enjoy it.